I've heard foreclosures are taking a year or 2 years in the state of Florida. Why do I need to hire a lawyer? I'm Steve Kramer and I'm a Florida foreclosure lawyer. Every case is different. I've seen cases where people came in and they'd been served with a lawsuit maybe 6 months ago and they hadn't done anything. And they were lucky because they didn't lose automatically, which is what happens if you don't respond to a lawsuit. And I've had other cases where people came in, and generally when you serve with a lawsuit, you've got 20 days to respond. And if you don't respond in those 20 days, then the plaintiff can go ahead and get a default against you. And a default means you automatically lose. And I have literally had a client sitting in my office, and in this particular instance it was a hotel, and they had been served with a foreclosure and their response was overdue. It was a few days overdue, and I said, really, we should get this done today? And they said, well, we've got to go home, we've got to meet with our business partners and take care of this. And they came in literally the next day, and overnight there was a default entered against them, and that means they automatically lost. So at that point we had to go in and do a whole lot of work to try to get them back to an even playing field when they were basically 6 feet under in their case. And that's what happens if you don't answer the lawsuit. Now, there's another explanation as to why foreclosures were taking a while for most people. And that was, in the end of 2010, there were a lot of things that came together all at one time. One of those was that the state attorney general was investigating a lot of the foreclosure firms and the banks. And they determined that there was a great deal of fraud. And you may have heard of the robo-signing scandal. That's about the same time it popped. And that was basically a scandal where there were a lot of fraudulent documents, or somebody would sign 1,000 documents for 1,000 different cases when they really had no personal knowledge about each of these cases. And about all of this came out at the same time. Banks basically started firing their attorneys. They pulled all their files. And the other thing that was going on was there was a multi-state lawsuit against a lot of the big banks. And to a great degree, all of these intersected at the same moment, and that kind of put a freeze on everything. So what you saw was basically an 85% drop between the end of 2010 and 2011. In the beginning, actually January, February, about an 85% drop in the amount of foreclosures filed. And what you also saw was the foreclosures that were pending sat, because the banks were kind of pulling back and regrouping. And they were regrouping so that they could go ahead and do things the right way and move them faster. And we're seeing that now. Foreclosures have been picking up. Today, when this video is filmed, this is early 2012. And we are seeing foreclosures picking up, and we are seeing the most aggressive tactics from banks and bank attorneys that we've seen in probably 2.5 years. And it is really changing the dynamics. Now, every case is different. And even during that freeze period, I saw cases where people lost automatically because they didn't do anything, because they didn't think they had to. But now, especially now that cases have picked up again, it's important to defend them. And a defense isn't where you kick back and you file one thing and say, oh, I'm good. That's not how you defend a foreclosure. The way you do it is you hit back as hard as you can. You hit the bank and the bank's attorney hard enough that they don't want to touch the case, that it's poison, that it's the hot potato they want to get out of their hands and off their plate, because they don't want to deal with your case because your attorney is punishing them and making this case miserable. You want to win these cases. You want to come out not owing money. And that's why it's important to defend these cases the right way. And don't assume that every case takes a long time. Our cases happen to take a long time because we're good at what we do, and a lot of our clients want time. And when they don't, we try to wrap them up quick and get a good result. The goal is always to get a good result, but don't count on what you read in the newspaper, because it doesn't tell the whole story. And it's impossible to compare apples and oranges, especially over a multi-year period with other factors to play. So, why am I telling you this? I deal with this stuff every day. I don't want you to assume that you don't have to deal with your foreclosure case because they take a long time. Protect yourself. Call me if you have any questions. I'm Steve Kramer. Thanks for watching.